Every year, the BC high school football playoffs just provide incredible drama for everyone that loves to watch this game in the province of BC. And, you know, every year we see great human interest stories coming off the field. And this year, one of the most incredible stories was that of the Vernon Panthers football team. This is a, Okanagan Conference AA team that has rarely had success here when the teams have to come down to the Lower Mainland for the playoffs. And Vernon came down here in early November for the quarterfinals at UBC's Thunderbird Stadium. They only brought 17 players with them to this game, and I think nobody was giving them a chance to win this game. And they beat Rick Hansen from Abbotsford, as we mentioned, with just 17 players, 11 of them on the field. So they had really no room for error and wind up winning this game, 16-12. It was just an amazing performance. And to talk to their head coach, Sean Smith, after the game, he really felt this team had made, a big mark for the small schools in BC, that they could come down and win games at the provincial championships. And I think the moment that really struck me was just me asking Sean about the game, and the fact that he had to pause to compose himself several times during our talk after the game. It just meant so much. You could see the tears, see the emotion on all the players. And so here's the Vernon Panthers winning a game, advancing to the semifinals where they lost, the next week. But I think just an incredible human interest story, and the fact that kids from small programs can dream about getting to the provincial championships and really making their mark. A really big highlight, I think, on the calendar this year at the university level really, I think, looks back at where two very special players came from in their high school careers. And we're talking about Alan Dix and Baseko Lakombo, who actually shared time in the same offensive backfield at W.J. Mowat Secondary School in Abbotsford in 2008. And this year, 10 months apart, these two guys each played in national championship games. And I really think that says a lot about what's happening at that school, at that football program. Last January, Baseko Lakombo, outside linebacker for the Oregon Ducks, played in the BCS national championship game against the Auburn Tigers. They ended up losing the game, but to actually advance to the national championship final in one of the most watched sporting events in North America, I think an incredible accomplishment for Baseko, who was an incredible running back during his time at W.J. Mowat. And then I think the capper on all that comes in November when Vancouver hosts the Vanier Cup CIS National Championship game. And here's Alan Dix, the little guy playing defensive back for the McMaster Marauders, who actually win the game. They beat Laval in double overtime at BC Place during a great Grey Cup weekend. I had a chance to talk to Dennis Kelly, the W.J. Mowat head coach, after that game. And I think he was, when it was brought up that two of his players, 10 months apart, had played for national championships at the Canadian and U.S. at the highest levels, that was a real point of pride for Dennis Kelly. And I think people will look back, on this 2011 football calendar year and really see that was a very special thing, something that we may not ever see again, but two local guys playing for national championships. March Madness is a great time of the year, especially when you're a high school basketball fan. And I thought this past March at the Langley Event Center, we got a chance to see something truly special. Not just from the standpoint of winning a championship, but a real family story that really unfolded before our eyes, unscripted, in the hours leading up to the championship game. And we're talking about R.C. Palmer Secondary from Richmond, had never won a BC championship before, advanced to the championship game against a Vancouver College team that had not won the title since 1967. And really interesting to note here that the R.C. Palmer Griffins fell behind 19-2 to start this championship game. So if you can imagine working your entire life to play the biggest game of your life, finding yourself down 17 points to start the game, but this R.C. Palmer team had no quit. They were able to come back and beat the Vancouver College Fighting Irish 71-63 in the BC AAA Boys Championship Final. Afterwards, the head coach of the R.C. Palmer team, Paul Eberhardt, let me know that his dad, Don, who was really looking forward to being in the stands to watch this game, had to be hospitalized on the day of the game. And I think the really inspiring moment from a family perspective is that Don Eberhardt won the BC Championship in 1961 at McGee Secondary School in Vancouver. So exactly 50 years later, his own son coaches a team to the BC Championship title. Don had to watch the game, on TV from the hospital. The best news, all is well, and it was great to see obviously the tears flow, the emotion that happened after that game for the Eberhardt family and for the RC Palmer Griffins for a huge victory, and obviously one of the highlights of the sporting year for me. I've always loved the fact that a player could play without fear, just the notion of really throwing caution to the wind and really trying to seize the moment, I think makes for absolutely inspirational stories, and got a chance to see that firsthand the first weekend in March at Capilano University in North Vancouver. The site of the girls BC AAA basketball championships, and W.J. Mowat from Abbotsford, the team that had been ranked #1 virtually the entire season, was playing its semifinal game on a Friday, and their fearless point guard, Jaslyn Singh, right at the end of the game, broke her nose. Very obvious she was in a lot of pain. I think the thought the next day when Mowat was going to play Claremont Secondary from Vancouver for the title was that she would have to wear a protective face mask. But come game time on the Saturday, we're all looking, there's no face mask, and there she is starting, and really not avoiding any of the contact, really playing through the pain and the obvious discomfort that she was showing. But she leads W.J. Mowat to the BC Championship over Claremont. It's the first girls' title in the history of the school. And really, I think her play and her courage exemplified a lot of what it takes to win a title of this kind of magnitude. How many hundred teams start the season off, trying to win the most prestigious girls basketball title in BC? Here we go in March Madness again, and really Jaslyn led her team. Kaylee Sartori, obviously the MVP of that tournament. I thought there were so many great performances, but what really sticks out is Jaslyn Singh at the end of the game, meeting her family, hugging her dad. Just the emotion of the moment really struck through to a lot of people, and I think you walked out of the arena that night with a memory that just you're not going to forget. And I think that really stands for a lot, the courage that players have to show to win titles. And so hats off to Mowat and to Jaslyn Singh for some great memories in March. Every year in the high school sports department, we finish off the year with a 3-month labor of love. We call it Head of the Class. It clearly stands as a highlight for me. Every year, we select, 16 to 20 of the top high school athletes in BC, tell their stories, where they're headed, and it's become a great project because we're able to follow the paths of these student athletes as they enter their university careers and in later life, what they're all about, and clearly the moments they share in their high school experience through sports really has a meaningful effect, and we're able to see that clearly down the road with these athletes. And this past year, no exception, the 11th annual Head of the Class came out in June. Some of the athletes we selected were obviously among the best in their sports in Canada, and it was great to see some of those athletes share some great moments. Tom Robson from Ladner was drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays. He's working his way through their farm system, and I think that the hope is that someday we'll see him in the major leagues, and that would be a huge accomplishment for Tom. Athletes like Katie Reed, the sprinter from Earl Marriott in Surrey, who's on a full scholarship at UCLA this year, another one of the highlights. So many of these great athletes, and I think it's a real hidden resource. We don't really know, unless we're following the high school scene really closely, just how talented our athletes are, receiving scholarships and able to parlay that athletic talent into educational opportunities. So again, Head of the Class is going to be another highlight, obviously, when our 12th annual edition comes out this June. So we'll be looking forward to doing another section there, and obviously it's one of the highlights of the season.